All right, man. I don't know about you, but 701 podcast, and I just can't get enough of that music.
I can't. It's my jam. It's the jive. People love it, and I also love it. It is July 20th, the year 2023. Welcome aboard, everybody. You're listening to the Crushing Iron podcast, episode 701.
Yeah. I'm sure a lot of people are like, what are you talking about? That music is crazy.
But a lot of people love it.
Oh, yeah, I know. I tried changing it once, and I got like accosted.
Yes. A lot of negative feedback.
Like
we get enough of that already. We don't need to like encourage people to be like, yeah, you got to leave it. It's people's jam. It gets them excited. It gets me excited when we roll it in there. But it's July 20th. Before we get too far into it, I want to give a quick shout out to my little man, Hayden. It is his 7th birthday today.
Happy birthday, buddy.
Yeah, happy birthday, bud. And as most 7-year-olds on their birthday, they want to wake up and go to work with their dad. So he said he wants to come to work with me. So he's here. I did, however, banish him to the office across the hall with a bunch of windows so I can see him for both of our sakes. That way I don't have to tell him to be quiet every 2 seconds, and he can, see what it's like to not have to live in corporate America, but having his own office, his own space. He's got some Lego magazines, some Legos, and he is looking like he's living his best life. So yeah, happy birthday to him. He got his presents this morning, and he heads out to Nashville Predators hockey camp next week.
Wow.
Which that was his big gift. He only had a few things open this morning, but yeah, he's really pumped.
Did you get him a briefcase?
I did not get him a briefcase. No.
All right.
No. He did get an autographed picture of UC Saros, who's the Preds goalie, and he was really pumped about that. So, but no, maybe I could get him like what'd they get? Get him a flat bill hat, some Beats by Dre headphones, a 3-piece suit, and a suitcase, and he can walk off the airport like he's a junior NHL player.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not doing that to him or myself this early on. But yeah, it's a great day. Hope you're having a great week so far. Busy racing weekend upon us with, again, Lake Placid, which have been, I think the pro race will be covered on Ironman Live. You got Ohio, you got Oregon, and you got a bunch of very popular sprint Olympic distance races across the country. And then the rest of the year, as always, it is banging busy. So good luck to all of you if you're racing. Before we forget, remember, the only things you can control are your effort and your execution. So knock those things out. And for those of you that your first time tuning in today, welcome. We appreciate you giving us your time. We know you have quite a lot of options in the triathlon podcast universe and just podcasts in general terms, very valuable. So we appreciate you doing it today. We've covered it all. We do swim, bike, and run specific podcasts. We do race recaps and also a lot of race previews. But for the most part, Mike and I, as coaches, athletes, best friends, we just sit back, relax, have an open, honest discussion about what we're going through in life, not just as human beings, but also as coaches and athletes ourselves. We also talk frequently about what our own athletes are going through. Mike and I work with a wide range of athletes all across the globe, from beginner level triathletes, so in the very first 5K or sprint triathlon, all the way up through elite little amateurs trying to get back to world championships, and everyone in between from all over the globe. And we use the feedback loop we have with them in Training Peaks, emails, text messages, and the like to drive the discussion of the day. We oftentimes also utilize our Facebook group. You can search that, Crushing Iron Group. Answer one simple question, we'll let you ride down. Awesome community, fantastic resource, and a solid place for good information from good people. So if you have a question, ask it. You'll get great feedback from, again, a wide range of athletes. Don't be a lurker, be a participant. That's it. We don't do sponsors. We most certainly don't do ads, but we do have an agenda, and that's to keep you happy and healthy in your endurance sports journey.
Happy and healthy and maybe a little grimy.
Maybe a little grimy.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with being grimy.
No, there's not.
And go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I'm finding that out, I'm as an athlete anyway, I find that out as the summer rolls on, and you and I have been racing for a long time, you longer than me, but still, it's like you have to be reminded, and you're always kind of looking for a little bit of an edge, and then, it's kind of like you also have to decide really what you want. What do you want out of this training, and what do you want out of this racing and stuff? And for me, it kind of usually boils down to, I theoretically want to do the best that I can, but taking it to that point is no easy chore, you know. So I'm kind of always looking around for spirit animals of sort, you know, like it's, you want reinforcement that what you're doing is right. Or like, you know, what you have these gut instincts, and I sort of have a lot of them. Just when I'm out, I think we all do that, but it's like, this feels right, or this doesn't feel right, or it kind of feels right, or what do you do? I was talking to you briefly about Courtney Dauwalter. She's an ultra runner who just absolutely mashes these 200 or Moab 240 or whatever. It's just dusting everybody in the field. And I just saw a quick clip, and I just wanted to throw this in again because we just talked about it. But she does these 200-mile races or whatever, 100s, 200s, and I saw an interview with her, and she's just so happy-go-lucky and kind of gets such joy out of the training and the struggle of the race. And she said when she goes into a race, her goal is to get into the pain cave as quick as possible in a race. And, you know, when I think of that, I always think about mile, 15 of the Ironman marathon or something like that, when it really starts to go to hell and the wheels can really come off if you're not mentally prepared for it. But I just thought it was so interesting because she took the angle of she's trying to get there and that's what she wants. And then when she does get there, she figures out, she's like happy because it gives her an opportunity to grow and figure out solutions. And I just thought that was such a twist on everything. You know, it's everybody's like, oh, I just don't want to hit that 20-mile mark where I bonk, or whatever. But like, she wants to bonk. And then it's always, she talks a lot about how she tries to figure out nutrition and like troubleshooting all the time. But mainly it's just somehow her mental tenacity that just kicks in and finds joy in the sport. And we were talking about endurance sports and how mentality is so important, and how can you dig deeper, and what are you going to do when you get to that point?
Listening to you talk, it made me think of something in that, I think one of the reasons you and I got in this sport for very close to the same reasons, right? We were trying to turn our life around in a variety of ways. And, 8, 10, 12, 15, 20 years ago, most people sought out endurance sports, right? They did it because they needed to toughen up. They needed to make a change. You were in search of something. It had nothing to do with, crossing this, these 2 or 3 things off your list and then moving on. It wasn't a bucket list thing. It was a life list, right? That you wanted to check off, not just check off and be done, but check off and get out, right? Like, check these boxes off. I got rid of these things. I got my shit together. This is better. This is what I was looking for. It's changed my life. And now I know the value of what I've been doing. And I can't imagine not doing it, right? Like, some of the best feedback you get from athletes, is they're like, listen, like, I can't imagine not training and not having a coach because it brings so much accountability to my life. It brings so much structure, brings so many great opportunities, to prove to myself and to do things, the right way. I can't imagine not having it. And you see this, that's why you've been in the sport for, such a long period of time. And what I think is happening now, why you may or may not see the growth of the sport happening at such a rapid rate, is that now a lot of times through social media, especially Ironman specifically, with marketing and friends and sharing things, and it's more so that triathlon kind of finds you and you just kind of do it to do it. And so the life cycle of your interest or your attention span is very short, because why you got into it, you lose along the way, or you don't stay in it long enough because you got into it to cross it off and then move on to the next. And right, any kind of when you talk about, business models, it's always about returning customers, right? Return. It's like, a subscription model versus, you buy this thing and that's all you need for the rest of your life. That's not really the best business model because you're not going to get return customers. Well, one of the biggest benefits of endurance sports, regardless of what it is, right, is what it does for you mentally and how you can work through things and the benefits it has, and that also transcends periods of years where you can have undulating commitment levels or goals or races or expectations of, this year I want a PR. This year I want to qualify for a world championship. This year I just want to make it through. This year I know I don't have that many hours to do, but I'm really not in it for that. I'm in it because I know the value that it brings. And I know that getting out there and doing a run when I don't want to. I know getting out there and pushing myself on the bike. I know overcoming my fears in the water. Like, we get so obsessed, right, with a time and a place and a beating of a previous, course PR, or beating your buddy, or keeping up with the Joneses. Like, that lasts for like 2 seconds. That's like, you don't no one walks around with their, a shirt that like lists all their accolades. And even if you did, no one would give a shit. They wouldn't even read it, because no one reads that stuff that the people are about themselves. But what happens when you tough things out, you work through things, you challenge yourself, you do things that scare you, you push yourself to the limit, you figure things out about yourself, that you just wake up one day and guess what? You don't need to wear a shirt. You don't need to post on a social media that you did this. It's who you are. And that stuff sticks with you. And then what you think then is, I can't imagine not having this. But it takes work, and it takes overcoming fears. But ultimately, to get there, you have to put yourself in really, really, really tough situations. And we've just gotten soft along the way, soft in encouraging ourselves to do hard things. We want things to be easier. The roads need to be better in these races. The swims, we got to have rolling starts, and they got to be downstream. You look at the races that sell out right now. North Carolina 70.3, Oregon 70.3, Chad 70.3. One thing in common: super easy swim.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Super easy. Like, we look for not just easy races, but we look for easy training. We want to be stuck inside. Like, and you wonder why the sport's having such a short lifespan and life cycle with so many athletes, is that you're limiting what you gain, right? And then that probably sounds like, the old man on his soapbox saying, but you know what? That's fine, because I'm the old man on the soapbox, and I've been around, but I also know specifically, and you do too, what it's done for me in my life, and how it's helped me work through difficult experiences, but also how training has allowed me to deal with other difficult circumstances because I have this experience. And so I think we're missing the boat in a lot of areas by forgetting why we got into it, or even maybe not even know why we're getting into it.
Yeah. And another thing I've been doing is watching the tour, and I just can never get enough of these guys, like, talking about how they chase pain and how painful shit is, and they're just warriors. And they show them, like, how many accidents you see, and they just get up and they're limping around, and they just get right back on it because they have to, and they get after it. And I was thinking of something when you were saying that. It's like these easy courses, or like easy swims or whatever. But I feel like these guys look forward, even though it sucks, is like the cobblestone stages and things like that. Those are like, they have certain mystique about them, and they want to go out and challenge themselves like that, even though they know it's going to suck the whole time. and there's something about that that's just so fascinating when, an athlete can dig deep and kind of like just get pleasure out of knowing that they're giving their all. It's like, I've been running here a little bit at this new place, and there's a sandy beach, and it's about a 5-mile run around the lake. And, I have to totally ignore my pace, but it's just so rewarding for me. I just feel good about it. It's really hard. And over, you could just be kind of cruising around and then just hit like a super soft section where you just can barely even walk, let alone run. And the reason I bring that up is because it's just given me so much more like pleasure in the training, even though I'm not trying to always hit certain pace and intervals and doing all this stuff. I'm just kind of doing it. And there's really a lot of reward in that for me personally. And like you said, man, it's like you do this thing because of the challenges, right? If everything just always went smooth, I don't think there's really any improvement there. It's like you talk about swimming, and that's always going to be the big question, right? Or the big challenge for most triathletes is they didn't grow up swimming, and then they want to get good in their 40s. You know, it just takes a lot. I mean, are you willing to dedicate that type of yardage to get better? That's what it boils down to for me a lot of times. I mean, I've worked hard at times and sort of gotten into the ballpark of like somewhere where I feel pretty good about it. But I'm certainly not getting, you know, I'm not blazing by any means. Every once in a while you see somebody that really does pick it up later in life and get fast. But I think you don't see what they're doing behind closed doors. They're going after it and working hard at it. And you just got to make up your mind and decide if that's what you want to do. And if you want to go through that to get to a point where you really are a good swimmer later in life.
You know, when you were talking about, you know, watching the tour and, you know, and I did, like, I love it. Like, and I almost love it just as much because of like all the footage they show of like the surrounding area. And I'm not a big geographical person, but I find that part of the world so fascinating. And when they show like, you know, some of like the personal videos of athletes and these climbs and stuff they do, it's so, I love it because they do so many of these really challenging climbs just to make it to the top. Just the challenge of doing it. They're not looking to crush like a speed record. They're not looking to hit a PR. They're doing it because it's hard. They like doing it because it's hard. And that has become a lost art. We don't want to do things that are hard anymore. And a lot of that's because we have so many things that are easier and at our disposal, right? That just we have so many options to make things easier. And everyone is guilty of it in some way, shape, or form. We do. We live in, you know, an insanely progressive country where we have so many things at our fingertips, you know, that it's crazy how easy things have become. So I think we always veer towards that. I mean, just as an example, and this is like, you know, a small scale example, but it's similar. Is like Hayden had to come with me last night to tennis for a little bit before Allie could pick him up because she had something else going on. And my first thought as a parent was like, man, he's going to be so bored. I'll just, you know, dig the iPad out, even though we currently can't find it. We haven't known where it is for like 2 months, which is fine. And actually it's great. Or just, you know, tell him to bring like, you know, his like Lego magazine and think and do for himself. And I was like, he can just think and do for himself. Same way right now. Like I was like, maybe I give him the iPad just so I don't have to deal with him. I was like, you know what? Let him figure it out and see if he can just, you know, spend an hour in this office alone with a few Legos and a magazine. But your first thought is, how can I make this easier on me? And I think I'm making it easier on him, but he's currently doing just fine. And he did fine last night. But I'd give that as an example just to say, like, I think the first, you know, number one, number two, number three, number four on your list of like things to do. Number one is always the easiest. Like what makes this the easiest? What makes this the simple? Like, you know, I do that a lot, you know, with a lot of things. And so that's not always the answer. You don't grow with that, right? You know, when you look back and I know we've discussed this at length, but when you go through sessions, you know, a lot of people ask, you know, I really need like a great session to make me feel good about race day, to make me feel like I'm on point. And I'm like, no, what you really need is a really hard session where you didn't feel great, but you found a way to get it done. That's what you need.
Yeah. Because
the perfect days are few and far between. And the chances of you having that on race day is like 1 in 100. Just like they are in training, right? You have very, very few perfect days. What you're more than likely going to have is an average to pretty good day with obstacles and things thrown in the way, and you have to learn how to adapt and overcome. Get a flat tire, right? You have a bike wreck, or something happens, or you drop a bottle. Troubleshooting, figuring out. That's how you learn and grow. You solve one problem, and it teaches you how to solve another problem, because you can go back on your resume of overcoming obstacles or problem solving, of toughing it out, of making it work. Go back, and if you're listening to this podcast, look back at the last year and ask yourself how long your resume is. Is it really short? Have you really given yourself a pretty easy way of doing pretty much everything? I mean, and if you have, what are you going to lean back to on race day? Not much, right? You got to put yourself in these tough situations, and it's not about physically growing. It's about mentally growing and getting tougher and proving to yourself that you can do these things that you don't think are possible, right? And I think that's one of the biggest conversations we have as athletes and people, right? Is that years and years and years can go by, races can go by, but a lot of times we still deal with the demons of our past. We still deal with the way we used to see ourselves, or the way we see ourselves, then we're not that person anymore. We have those, and that is a huge obstacle for so many athletes, is that you can do all these things, but if you get caught and you get stuck and you don't see how you've grown, you don't see how you overcome things, then you're not really going to ever be able to use all the experiences and all the great things you learned and gotten from endurance sports for their full capacity, because you're still stuck, right? And the person that you used to be, right? Whether it was out of shape, whether it was lazy, whether it was uncommitted, whether it was, your definition of slow, you couldn't do hills, you're trapped in your head of can'ts. And that's one of the biggest conversations, I know you and I both have with athletes, is like, stop telling yourself that you can't. Because again, when you talk about, first thing is the easy way out. If you look over the next column, it's, not the easy way out, but it's, I don't really need to do this. I can't do it. Right. I'm not good enough. I'm not fast enough. I don't think I'm ready. Do you really ever know that you're ready? You won't know unless you do it. It's like, and I think we get trapped some, and again, that's more of an expression, I think, of insecurities and a lot of things that we deal with in life, whether it's from, your parents or former coaches or society or whatever it is, or you're just born that way. We all have those. But that's why endurance sports is so wonderful. That, me specifically, I know, because I remember from a very, very, very early age, for no reason whatsoever, that I just didn't feel like I was good enough. Feel like nothing I did was good enough. I wasn't smart enough. I wasn't fast enough. I wasn't, athletic or intelligent enough. I just felt that way. And then what happened is I already told myself that story and started to believe it. So then when things even remotely kind of came close to that happening, then I was just self-affirming. See, I told you so. See, I told you so. See, I told you so. And that's still, it doesn't permeate nearly as much as it used to. Not even close. But there are still days, right, where I think back and I have that thought cross my mind, and then I have to let it like actively pass through and think, that's not you, right? That's not, especially like, the first few years I was sober, there was a lot of things that I remind myself that I wasn't that person anymore. And it's a really hard thing, but you can't outgrow it if you don't choose to grow. And that comes with challenge. Same thing with your mentality in endurance sports and how you approach training and being able to do hard things. You can't outgrow that personality or that trait or that lack of desire, that lack of mental toughness. You can't outgrow it if you don't grow. And the only way to grow is to do things that put you in tough situations and make yourself do the things you don't want to do. Because there really is no loss. There really is no fail. It's just growth, or it's backing out.
Man, yeah, I love that. I think that feeling not good enough, I think everybody deals with that, right? And how we get through that. And it's sort of like it can come from a deep embedded place where it's tough to get rid of. And it's like, creating calluses on your brain or something where you don't, it's not that you don't believe it anymore, but you've worked so hard and literally had to change a little, change your brain and the way your body works and things like that. And I think it seeps in, no matter what that is from back in the day, failures or, insecurities and those types of things, I think also come out more frequently when we're doing hard things, because it's sort of like a test in a way. It's like you get halfway through it and, like you're saying, find a way to get it done. I think that there's nothing more powerful than that. And sometimes the athletes will say, this 5-hour ride just went perfect. I nailed it. Everything went great. But then I'll see the next comment will be, a 4 or 5 hour ride that just from the get-go didn't feel right. They didn't want to be there. They just didn't whatever. And they somehow got it done. Then I'm like, that's training, because you got to figure that out. I talk to athletes a lot about what would be like pre-race and during the week before they race, and we'll talk about strategies and all these kind of things and what they've done over the training and how they should approach every event. And then the last thing I always say is like, oh yeah, and don't forget, this is going to be really fucking hard. It's going to be really hard. What are you going to do when that, chip drops? Because I don't care how good you're trained for this, because everything's on a continuum, right? On the left side is complete failure. The right side is perfect success, and everything's going to fall in the middle. So if you want to be in the middle and just average, most people can probably hit their average, but sometimes if you feel a little bit better, how are you going to push that without going too hard and like not too hard for your body necessarily, but for your mind? Are you ready to cross that bridge into an area where you're like going to test yourself again on race day here? It's like, oh, I feel pretty good. I think I got a little bit more in me, but not too much, right? So like, how do you flirt with that sort of gradual increase in effort or confidence or whatever you want to call it, and not go over the edge? And if you do go over the edge, how are you going to handle that? I mean, there's so many opportunities in a race to figure out solutions. And like we've talked about it many times, and most like ultra endurance athletes talk about this, but don't believe how you're feeling, because it's going to change, good or bad or whatever. So it's sort of like a chess match with yourself the whole day, trying to figure out where your limits are at that certain moment. And if you want to be racing at your best, you got to kind of flirt with those. You got to figure out what is going to work and what might not work, and, test it's just so fragile out there, but there's ways to get through things. And, how many times have you seen it? Somebody like, you pretty much write them off in a race, and somehow they figure out how to come back and finish strong. I mean, sometimes it does take, just a little bit of a pause or something like that, and just kind of maybe take a little bit of a break or something and just regroup and then just come back. I mean, I see it all the time. But if you keep plowing through and keep driving yourself into the ground, that's when it's going to be a problem. But there's always opportunity to figure out how to get it done.
And there's two things that resonate with me on that. The first one is like as you talk there towards the end, I always get this visual of, what is it, like Rocky 5 when he's or 4 when he's fighting Drago, and Drago's got this, pimped out Russian, all these, the state-of-the-art equipment for back then. Everything's monitored. Everything's perfect. Everything at your disposal. And Rocky heads out to the woods, the barn, the snow. Mm-hmm. He's doing pull-ups from the rafters, right? And I always think about stuff like that. I think about, this day and age of how dependent we've become, and how we rely, and how we actually throw way too many of our eggs in the technology basket and that we kind of not give ourselves more credit, but I think we value it way too much, and then understand that it's not nearly as valuable on race day, because it's so much from the chin up. But what you said in the beginning of that was, I think a lot of us have this fear of affirmation, because I think we do as athletes and as people and just general, human beings on this planet, is we have reservations. We have these negative thoughts. We have these fears. We have, certain things that we, that are sticking points for us that we aren't really sure we can overcome. Or there are stories about ourselves that we think we believe, but we really don't want to do anything to put ourselves in a situation where we understand or realize that it might be absolute fact. So we just don't do it, right? We don't take on this race. We don't take on these hills. We don't take on, a harder event. We don't try as hard, right? Because then we really put ourselves out there. So we kind of have this fear of affirmation. And what we should have, though, instead is this confidence in this belief of exploration. Let's figure out, right? And if I suck at this, I suck at this. Let's figure out how to get better at it. Let's figure out how to overcome it, and not avoid it. That's such a huge thing, again, with I think all things right now is let's just not talk about it. Let's just avoid it, right? And it's like, and let's just avoid things and avoid this and avoid, then I'll be fine. I'll be better until one day you can't avoid it. And then what are you going to do? You're totally unequipped. It's like race day. You avoid it in training, you avoid it in training, you avoid it in training, comes on race day. And then all you do is complain about the race. Ugh, my God, I can't believe the road surface. I got a flat tire. My day was over. This happened, and you blame it on the volunteers or the spectators or the race director or the race course or, the local transportation department who didn't pave the roads perfectly or the pothole that wasn't, perfectly circled with spray paint. Guess what? Look in the mirror, blame yourself. Most of the time, 99 times out of 100, blame yourself because you didn't prepare. You didn't do things to where you could overcome it, because shit happens in every single second of the day, every day of the week, every week and month, every month of the year. Shit happens, right? It's how you choose to overcome it. But if you aren't used to overcoming anything, then yeah, you're going to crumble on race day.
Yeah.
Crumble. So you've got to get out there and push yourself. Not push off being responsible. I'm not talking about push off mentally and stop being so scared that you can't do something, that you're going to let somebody else down. Like that was one of the big things. Somebody told me once was like, don't train and race to try to prove others wrong. Train and race to prove yourself right.
Yeah.
Right that you're good enough, right that you're fast enough, right that you can do this, right that you can do that. Because if you get lost in proving things to other people, right, then it's never going to amount to anything, and that'll vanish and dissipate, and you'll have nothing left, no motivation. Same goes for, maybe even trying to prove something to your past self. But lean into your fears. If it scares you, go do it. If it frightens you, go do it. But you have to, and again, like that's why I think it's become so hard for people is that we've so many things in life now have become, metrified. Too many metrics, too many medals, too many this. If you don't get it, it's like it's subpar. But if you go back and look at like your last year or two of training, and same goes with life. You don't remember the easiest days and the easiest workouts and the best ones. You remember the hard ones, especially the hard ones that you finished, right? But guess what? I also remember the hard ones that you chose not to do. Those stick with you, right? Those really stick with you. Just like, professional coaches will always tell you they don't remember wins or championships, but they remember all the bad losses. That's all they remember. They stick with you. What could I have done better, right? How could I have made this happen? How could I have made this work? You choose not to get out on your long ride when there's a slight chance of rain, and you do it inside and you miss out on a long ride. And then you do it again. Then the next week it rains, really does rain. You can't go outside. Then a month goes by and you've done no long rides outside because you're looking for the easy way. There's a 10% chance today of overcast. I think I'll switch these up. And the next day life happens and you miss a ride. Guess whose fault that is? Yours. Not Mother Nature's. Nope. You made the choice to find the easy way or to work around or to, or to skip it, right? Not to skip it, I guess to call an audible and just move it. Just get it done. Get it done. And again, because a lot of times what also happens is, I really wasn't feeling 100% today, so I thought it was best. Are you kidding me? Whoever feels 100% any day? Like seriously, like even on race day, because you have life and you have work and you have stress. Like that's never going to allow you to really feel at 100%. So you can't use that either. But we always look for ways, consciously or subconsciously, to give ourselves an out. Versus, you know what? I'm going to go on and just see what happens. But that's when you find them. That's when you are the most proud of yourself. When you just ripped it and let it all go, let it all hang out. You weren't scared. You weren't worried. You didn't care what happened at the end, but you just knew you were going to lay it all out there and empty the tank and push through. And those are the moments you remember because they changed who you were. And they change how you believed about the things you believed about yourself. And then a lot of times you just crave getting back there. A lot of people don't crave that perfect day or the perfect speed or the perfect time. But what they crave is that empowering, almost euphoric feeling of being in like pretty extreme pain and choosing to keep going. That's when I felt my most invincible in life. Whether it was going through hard life situations or whether it was going through certain races, it wasn't because things came easy. And I was, man, today just felt effortless. It was just this. The times that I crave feeling again, where you do feel invincible and so almost like an out-of-body experience, are those times when I can go back and look at how strong I was mentally or emotionally during a hard period of life, or I look back on the races where I knew how much it hurt. And instead of slowing down or walking or stopping, I went harder. Like those moments, they change you and they become addicting, right? I think that's what, the woman you were talking about at the beginning, the ultra runner, I think that's what she's talking about in a way, is it becomes an addictive feeling because it almost kind of gives you a buzz. If you've never had it, then you won't know what we're talking about. But it's like this euphoric feeling of pain, that it's a good pain. And you're not only working through it, you're welcoming it around every corner, after every mile. You're like, yeah, let's do it, baby. Let's do it. And once you've had them, you really understand, I think, what endurance sports are about, because it changes who you are and it changes what you want.
Man, you bring up such a great point there. I think that changing who you are, I mean, it's literally, I think back to some of those moments that I've been through. My first Ironman marathon hurt every single step, and I was literally changing who I was. It's almost like the image came to mind. What was it, the Incredible Hulk or whatever, when the dude like transforms from a whatever into the Hulk. And like if you watch that, you can kind of just see the pain in that transformation, but going through it is literally what I kind of feel like the body does. You're kind of just grinding and trying to change that DNA or whatever, the muscle structure or the way you think about things, and your brain is just fighting every minute of that, like, no, but you're pushing and pushing. And how can that not change you to go through stuff like that? I've always believed we are what we expose ourselves to. And you talk about fear and, people who are like, all right, yeah, let's do it. Let's go. Like kind of just willing to try things. And I think so many of us are hesitant because, and I'm a good example of that. I've had to force myself to do things like when I was in my 30s and I wanted to learn drums, it scared the shit out of me every time I did it. And then finally I got on stage and I think my hair went gray overnight because I was so I was just so like uptight about that. And, it's kind of like public speaking or something. People would, how that can affect them, and we've done 700 podcasts now where I feel like, I probably wouldn't be as intimidated by it or whatever, but because here we are every day or twice a week talking for an hour, to the public. And it can be stressful, but it's changed over time where you don't think about it as much. And, it's kind of like when you're on those, painful journeys, it's sort of like that other images of forging steel or something like that. It takes a long time and patience to sort of reshape everything in your body. And, and the other thing is, like, if you're just doing things and, like you said, trying to leave it on the line and going for it without fear, I think there's a lot of us have this thing where we want to be really good or great at everything, and that's just not possible. We can try different things all the time, and whether it's me with drumming, I never got to the point where I was, what I would consider myself even one of the better drummers in a town like Rockford, Illinois. Not even close. It takes a lot of work, and here we are doing triathlon. There's 3 sports. We want to be great at everything. Mm-hmm. And it's very difficult, man. I think that there's a lot of power in just giving it your effort and doing the best you can and just being okay with that, And if you have a strength, work on your strength, get a little bit better at it. But to be as great across the board is just very difficult. And I think that we have to understand that. You can be okay with it, but sorry, I'm got a frog in my throat here.
Getting a little choked up over there?
I'm a little choked up about this, man. No, because it is. It's like there's something about no matter what you do, you want to be really good at it, right? And it's just that bandwidth is just not there. And I think we face that a lot in triathlon because we always want to get, you're in a groove with your run and you're like, yeah, and then, but shit, I got to start biking more. And it's always this tricky balance of wanting to be good at everything. But sometimes you just have to give it a shot. You got to push yourself and see what you got,
There's, I think there's a quiet confidence about athletes and people who have gone through things that they don't need to talk about because you just inherently know that you've been there and you've felt it. What I've found in my experience, both as a person observing and then as athletes, the athletes that oftentimes and people are the most outlandish and bold and like just flat out loud about their ability to overcome pain are usually the ones that struggle the most with it or aren't sure they've ever gotten there yet because you're trying to basically tell yourself that you can. Yeah, you got this, man. You got this. When the ones that there's like a handful of athletes on a roster that I would take having done 40% of the volume of other athletes, and I would take them in a heartbeat on race day just because I know where their mental fortitude is. I know how mentally tough they are. I know they will never give up no matter what, and they can dig really, really. Because here's the thing, guys, is your ability to dig deep gets you an extra, in my opinion, 5-10% performance. Your inability to dig deep, you lose 30. It's not a wash because once the cascade starts to fall, once the momentum wanes, once the negative thoughts come in and you give into one, you give into another, you're just gonna keep giving it and keep giving it and keep giving it until it no longer becomes a race, it becomes a march of excuses. And the ones that are, and they're not always the quiet ones, but they're the ones you're just like, yeah, I would take that person 100%. I would take them. And because you've been there, and there's a quiet confidence within yourself if you've been in a spot where you've overcome something really, really difficult that you're like, I got this. It's not cocky, it's just confident. And confidence comes from experience, not from hopes and wants and being naive about your abilities. It comes from experience. You got to do it, right? You got to prove it. You got to do it, period. And that is what makes you into the person that you are. And if you don't feel that way about yourself, then stop doing the things that got you to that mentality, right? Whether it's we call it fragile or something else, you call it whatever you want. But do things that are at least going to start allowing yourself to be more confident and start on a more positive momentum towards a direction that gives you that strength. Because it honestly, it's probably more honestly than 10% performance gain because
I was going to say,
you're just able, yeah, I mean, like I'm trying to be, not as outlandish as I probably could be right there, but it is, it's you over, because you and I both, we talk about it, off air sometimes. Like we all know people, and we all know athletes that are like, they're trainer Tims, period. They're not game day Garys, they're just great at training. When it comes to race day, they crumble. And it's not because they didn't peak at the right time, because their taper wasn't perfect. It's because mentally, they're like driving down the interstate looking for the first exit, versus, the one who's driving like, you know what, just pee in the cup. We're going to keep moving. It's like, you're going to keep plowing through, you're going to find a way. And it's either how you've been wired or you're not convinced that you can wire yourself that way. And I'm just telling you right now, you can wire yourself to be tougher, but it comes with work and time and experiences. And that's why you and I brought it up a million times on the podcast, but I'll say it again. When, people talk about, having regrets in life and things and all those kind of things. When I look back in my life and, the very difficult things that I've been through, would I change how they probably impacted other people? For sure. Would I change how they impacted me? Not a day goes by that I don't thank my lucky stars that I went through so much shit to get to where I am now. Because now I feel like so many things to me that seem easy or that seem like I can overcome probably seem impossible to other people. And so I feel like it's a gift, but you got to go through them. And sometimes you might not like it. And I sure as hell didn't like it when I was going through it, but I'm thankful for it. And that's kind of how you have to look at it, right? Like racing and training in difficult times and storms and hills and flat tires and brokenness and niggles and bonking and whatever it is. You look at it as like, opportunities. Like, yes, opportunity to grow, not to run and hide. Opportunity to grow, not to run and hide. And again, it's all, and we say all the time, is like life is so much of a choice. You can choose your attitude. You can choose what you want to do. You can choose this, or you can choose to be a doormat, right? And just let things happen and then make excuses. But again, look for those opportunities, look for those reasons. And I think you've always talked about Amelia, I can't remember her last name, but she was like, she always says, I would purposely go out, once a week or, periodically on the worst weather day, pouring down rain, sleet, hail, sunshine, or not sunshine, like, something like really, really bad. And she'd go out and train in that.
Yeah. She set her schedule to that.
Yeah. Like toughen
Amelia
yourself
Boone,
up.
I think.
Because when you walk up to racing, you look at the clouds, you look at the temperature, you look at the water, you feel no fear. Not because it's not difficult, but because you're going to overcome it.
Yeah. Well,
so again, it comes down to choices.
Yeah, I think it's Amelia Boone. I think Amelia Earhart probably would have did the same thing.
Yeah, I reckon she'd agree.
But seriously, I think sometimes one of my weaknesses as a coach is that I have these kind of belief systems in myself, and I want other people to have them. And I know that's not a weakness, but I just always believe that people can pull it off, and that's what I try to instill in everyone is no matter what, you may not have trained as great as you think you should have or wish you would have, but I still believe in you. I still think that we can figure out a way. It might not be pretty. It might not be your best ever, but if you want to do it, we can sit down and just figure it out. It's like you were just saying, man, when there's a challenge or a problem or something doesn't go your way, if you take one step back and then just kind of meet with the person or whatever the conflict might be, and you just kind of come together and say, hey, let's figure it out. You can figure it out, and I think that, racing is one of those things where, rarely does anyone have like a straight, perfect training cycle. And sometimes you just got to kind of discuss it with somebody and get it out in the air and figure out the mentality of how you're going to approach things, and you can get it done. I know a lot of people who've, I've got athletes, like you said, that really had no business doing an Ironman based on their training or something, and they went out and did well. It's just a matter of the experience that they've gained, and they know how to deal with certain situations, and they don't, put too much pressure on themselves. They just kind of get in there and grind away and just get it done. Just keep spinning. That was one of the first things I learned back when I started cycling on a mountain bike is I went to a race I had no business being at. And the first guy I met, became a good friend at the time, he goes, hey, don't think about anything out there. Just keep spinning. Just keep spinning. And then when you think of it that way, it doesn't seem so big,
No. I always chuckle. And again, I'm not on really any social media platform, but I always chuckle when people send me like pictures or stuff from like Instagram or Facebook, and it's got, and it's got like, the caption is like, keep grinding. And it's a picture of like, an athlete in their race kit in their pain cave that's got like 2 flat screen TVs, 2 Apple MacBooks, a fan on the floor, the perfect trainer, a poster of themselves on the wall, mini fridge down the side, and somebody in the room handing them bottles. And it's like, keep grinding, baby, work through those tough times. And you're like, give me a fucking break, will ya? Like, that is like the spoon-fed grind of the century. But that is what you see all the time. It's like, keep grinding, baby, we got this. And you're like, oh my, this is not grinding. right? Like this is the easy stuff, right? Which is definitely not going to be race day. Ironman Wisconsin last year, that was grinding. Okay, that whole day was a grind. Day before Wisconsin 70.3, not as much a grind because it was about the conditions were just insane. But again, we talked about this the week after Wisconsin, and it was like I would love, if I could, to go back and poll, right, all the athletes that started that race and then kind of work through, from 1 to 2,000, and then take the average training hours, average long ride, average long run of all 2,000 athletes. And then obviously put in one box the ones that DNF'd, and then get, mental, emotional, personality profiles of everyone and see what kind of correlation not finishing had on. And obviously sometimes you have bad luck. Sometimes there is a physical reason why you cannot continue. That definitely happens. But a lot of it is, I think, I would just love to see the breakdown and how really useful the hours were versus, because I'm going to say this. I don't know, but who knows? I'll be right. If someone wants to do this, breakdown, I'll probably tell you this. The average finisher of Wisconsin last year, their average training hours, I'd bet you money they're less than the average training hours, the ones that didn't finish. Well, I believe that.
That'd be interesting to see the numbers.
Somebody with a spreadsheet and a lot of free time and great interviewing skills. Yeah, hop on that for us. We'll send you a t-shirt and a water bottle, and I'll give you a hug at Wisconsin this year.
There's got to be an AI for that.
It's seriously, somebody hop on Chat GPT and get that rolling for us.
Well, yeah, we're going to call this mental toughness in the beginning, but that probably won't be the title, but there's so much to it, man. I swear sometimes, I get more out of 4-hour trainer rides that I just can't stand any minute of it than I do actually going out and riding for 6 hours outside. It's like, how'd I get through that shit? When you're out riding, you can usually get through it.
Well, yeah, I mean, and we can close it out, but there's you have to force yourself.
Yeah.
Right. That's part of, growth doesn't come easy. Growth happens when you force yourself to do certain things. And, when you force yourself to do another 5 minutes, to do another 10.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it is. Because what it always reminds me of is, or you're doing like an out and back to keep going an extra mile out. And maybe do another mile. Maybe do another mile. Because what is you got to do longer. It's going to be longer going back. It always reminds me of the Ironman run. Mm-hmm. God, I want to walk. Oh my God, do I want to walk right now? God, I feel so good. Everybody's walking. Everybody. 80%. Everybody's walking. God, that would feel so good. They look so much happier. And then you're like, let's make one more mile. And to get to the aid station. All right, we got one more. After this, we'll reassess. Get to mile 20. All right, we're at mile 20. Got 10K left. All right, let's just do one more. Let's just see. Do another one. Like that right there is I think everyone has that thought, whether it happens at mile 3 or happens at mile 15 or happens at mile 22, you immediately start those negotiations with yourself, and I think that's, you can't negotiate well and win on race day if you haven't practiced negotiating with yourself, the stronger version and the weaker version against each other during training. And because you'll lose on race day if you haven't, you will give in, period. You've got to practice with this. So go out and find ways to practice that negotiating of push forward, go harder, go longer. I know it's uncomfortable, but you got this. Because then when you show up at the table on race day and that first thought comes to your mind, you'll just laugh at it, move on. You won't succumb to it. Deal. All right, fine. I can just tell people that I had a bad day and I wasn't feeling it and I bonked at mile 20 and everybody will still love me and I'll get 455,000 likes on Facebook. Probably more than I would if I finished. Or you can say, nah, not today. Nah, not today. I'm going to keep moving and gain that confidence you can have by pushing through and figuring it out and making it happen. Because then you won't just feel empowered and stronger and having grown during training and racing. You'll feel it from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed. Through all things in life, through your relationships, through your profession, through training, all things. You'll feel it and it'll stick with you and it'll become part of what you do and who you are.
Yeah, dude, that is huge. At one point we printed a t-shirt that said, "Do it now." And I think it's like, it creeps into your day. Like, the dishes, nope, just do it. You know, and if you want to walk, nope, just go one more mile. Like, just to create that reflex in that decision-making process is so powerful. I love how you put that.
Well, then let's leave it there.
All right, let's leave it there.
Again, I always get to end on a great note. As always, we love you guys. We appreciate you. Hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Hope you have an awesome weekend of racing, of training, and of growing. Go out there and grow yourself this weekend. As always, go to our website, c26triathlon.com, and is our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. And as always, if you need anything from Mike, he is available, CrushingIron@gmail.com, or if you need anything from me, c26coach@gmail.com.
All right, buddy. Enjoy your weekend.
See you, dude.
Happy birthday, Hayden.
Birthday.
See you.